Hello and welcome to this tutorial to build my 1/15 scale RC boat model of the Magura V7 unmanned surface vehicle of the Ukrainian Navy. Before we start this video, I want to make some things clear. So all beige or tan printed parts used in this video can be printed in any color you want. It doesn't matter, they will not be visible later on. All the tools I will use will be laid out before every step, and all the parts will be named before every step. It is really important that you print the whole project before you start assembling it, just because you need some parts of some colored plates in each step. It is also important that you remove any support material, any brims, look that the edges are clean, and look that you have all the parts necessary in this model kit. Just check it in the bill of materials or before each step. So let's get into it. To build the canopy, we need those 10 printed parts. Those are the 4 small brackets, the 2 large brackets, those 2 gray antennas, those 2 white antennas, this gray plate, the black plate, and the canopy parts 1, 2, and 3. We need to assemble it not in one go. We need to wait until the glue hardens. So we have to make it in at least 2 steps. So the first step will be just preparations. So we need to add those brackets to the front and back part of the canopy. It's really a nice help, but not necessary, that you use clamps, or in my case just clove clamps. I use 8 just to hold the glued pieces in place so they don't slide around. So I start by adding just a drop of glue, and lines of glue here. By the way, I use Uhu Hot. It works really well for PLA prints. I can really recommend it. Just get a large can, you need it. So we add those brackets. The orientation doesn't matter. Clamp it down so it sits nice and tight. Make sure that it sits completely at the back of this edge, otherwise it might not fit in the other part. Same goes for the small brackets. Push them in. If there's some excess glue on this surface, just let it harden and cut it away when it's hardened out. Otherwise you just might screw up the other surfaces if you want to paint it. If you are cautious, you can just wipe it off, but make sure you don't hit the outer surfaces. So we'll just wipe it off. Off screen I have my towel. Then we clamp it down. Push it in this direction again, so we are sure those parts will fit in the other print later on. And we set it aside to harden. We basically do the same stuff in the front of the canopy. Just add some glue. Just a tiny drop in the outer pieces. Yeah, that was way too much again. With this bracket, clamp it down. Those small brackets. Clamp them down as well. Pay attention that nothing slides around because we have the slanted surface on the bow. Just make sure everything is in the correct position. Press it in this direction. As you saw, this was just a little bit crooked. This would be enough to make it not fit in the other part later on. So press it against the front surface until it's flush. Set it aside to harden. And I will see you tomorrow. For you, it will just be a second. Welcome back. So now that our glue is cured, we can remove the clamps. We don't need them anymore. And now we make sure that we have a flat surface, so it fits together nicely. You can do a trial, and I see it doesn't fit perfectly because I have some excess glue here. So I will just get a knife and cut it off. I can find it. An X-Acto knife or scalpel works best. Just make sure you don't cut your fingers. Same thing on the other side. See here, a small blob of glue. That's another thing about Uhu Hot. It's not extremely hard, so you can just easily cut it off. While I'm at it, I do the same on the inner side, since it also needs to be clean later on. And as I said previously, you can just cut the excess glue off this surface too, if you haven't cleaned it off. So now we try again. Wonderful, it fits. Same procedure in the front. Cut off the excess glue. And we try again. Still on the same side. Now it fits. So we want to make sure that we put glue on those surfaces, on this, and this, and just a really small amount so it gets watertight on the contact surface here between this part and that part. But you really want to make sure that no glue squeezes out on the top surface in case you want to paint it or you want it to just have it look nice. It's the same on the back side. You put glue on here, on those surfaces, on those, and on the contact surface. You can just put glue on the bottom side of the seam here, so it seals it up, but nothing squeezes out at the top. Can look something like this. And now we put it on slightly from the top, set it on a flat surface. Squeeze it together firmly. And we continue on the back side. As you see, I tried to get the glue just on the underside here, on the seam, on this edge, so it doesn't squeeze out at the top, but it just gets a nice seal to make it watertight. Squeeze it together. If it wants to slide around on your plate, you can just put some weights on the front and the back. You may want to tape it, but I think it should not be necessary. You can directly continue with those plates here to support the glue edge. Just put a nice amount of glue on. Make sure that it's spread kind of evenly on the surface. And put it on. Should be a lot of wiggle room. Don't press on too tight, so nothing bends. Do the same thing on the back. Add a nice amount of glue. On the back plate, the direction in which it's mounted is shown by this notch here and this notch there. Just drop it in, push it around a little bit so the glue gets spread evenly. And there's that. We can then finish the canopy part by adding this antenna here, this one there. There's also a notch here and there to indicate the direction. We add this white antenna here, and this white one there, and then the canopy is finished. So let's glue them on. Just add a small drop of glue, it doesn't need much. Look for the notch, so it's straight. Same goes here. Add a tiny drop, that was way too much. Look for the notch, drop it in, rinse and repeat. Now we want to make sure that everything sits at a nice straight angle. And nothing is crooked, because we will definitely show later on. And we're done. We can let the glue cure and continue with the next step. Now that the canopy structure is finished, we flip it upside down. Make sure that you put something on the back of it to not damage the white antenna with its small stick-like elements. Then we need the two pieces of the canopy gasket, which are in this case printed from a soft TPU. You should not print them in a harder TPU like TPU for AMS, because that's not flexible enough to be a good sealant. If you can't print in TPU or don't want to or whatever, just get some foam rubber tape, like at least 2 millimeters wide and with a thickness between 0.8 and 1.2 millimeters, whatever is available in your shop or on your cellar. Next, we need some glue that can glue TPU as well as BLA in my case. I didn't test it, but I think Uhuhat should do it. Then we put a seam of glue around the whole canopy opening. Doesn't have to be much, just consistent to make it watertight. We're building a seal after all. Perfect. Make sure that you put the flat side that was on the print plate down on the surface, so the sealing lip can center the canopy on the hull later on. That's why it has a chamfer, like a negative chamfer. The sealing lip basically doubles as a centering edge, because the canopy opening in itself is a little wider than the brims of the ship hull to allow it to slide on easily. That's why we need to seal it. Just adjust it as it's straight and not too far away from the wall anywhere. And set it aside to let the glue harden. For the next step, we just need some glue. Those 6 pins, again printed in whatever color you like, and the 3 parts of the hull. The step is pretty basic. We just put those alignment pins in those holes. They will fit quite tightly, so some pressure will be needed. Then we just stand up those parts vertically. Feels easy because we have a flat surface in the back. Add some glue to the, ideally to the inner side of the contour, so not too much squeezes out for easier painting later on, but we make sure it's enough glue that it's sturdy. So let's begin. We can begin by pushing the alignment pins in, just completely as far as they will go. They are just for lateral strength and to align the parts. and we're good to go. Just add some glue. Here's the line of glue. As you can see, I used inner contour, and that will be enough to keep it together quite tight. Now we can just align those holes, and I will put it vertically. You maybe can't see it. Just push it together, and nearly no glue went to the outside. It's perfect. Do the same thing in the front. I'll just take this piece. I'll just put a nice line of glue on the inner contour. Maybe a bit more here. Just to make it a watertight seal. Align it, push it together. Press it together once, and I will just let it cure vertically, so no glue drips anywhere it shouldn't. And that's it for this simple step. See you on the next one. Now we need a small hammer, no large one, we don't want to damage the boat. We need our drive shafts and a small Allen key of whatever size is needed to remove the worm screws of those couplings. It depends. They sometimes send them in like 1mm thickness, sometimes in 1.5mm. Sometimes they send the Allen key with it, sometimes they don't. So we just disassemble those drive shafts, so we only have the pipe. Just open the screw and pull it out to the other side. And we want to push or hammer them in their corresponding holes here. So it should sit flush on the one side and also on the other side. Then it's right. Depending on your printer's tolerances or maybe on the material configuration, it could be that you can just slide them in. In this case, you would have to put a small drop of glue on the outside of the tubing. Just make sure that the ball bearings don't get glued shut. I will hammer in the second one. Watch your ears or turn down the volume, or I will mute it. Maybe I mute it in editing. Well, my hammer disintegrates. Maybe I should get a new one. That's as fine as it gets. They sit flush. Nothing is destroyed. Now we can continue with assembling the smaller parts of the hull in the next step. We set aside the couplings, the Allen key, and those parts of the drive shaft. We will install them later with the motors and stuff. For next step, we can install the small details on the hull. We will add those black air vents, the white air ducts, the exhausts, and this brim which will keep the canopy in place later. For tools we only need glue. So we start by putting a small drop of glue in this square shape. Well, my glue hardened in the... there it goes. And a small drop here. And we add the white pieces. They should just fit right in. So the chamfered part goes to the back and the vertical surface to the front. You can't put them in the wrong direction because they have a small notch, and it is also replicated here. They only fit in one direction. Just clip them in so they're nice and flush. Perfect. We get the glue again. Add some glue in this hole. Same on the other side of the boat. And we drop those black pieces in. Next up, we add the brim, and for that we put the glue in on this edge that runs around here, on the vertical as well as on the flat side. So I will do that. You want to make sure that there's enough glue so it's a watertight seal again. Should be enough. Press it on firmly. Same to the bow section. And then the center pieces. Here might be some ½ millimeter of a gap or so. Maybe it may not. In the case, I would just kind of close it from the inside with some glue, because that will be a place where water will ingress in the boat. We don't want that. Squish some glue on. Just wipe it off using your finger. Right, my towel, wipe it off. So now the brim is finished. Next we will put a drop of glue in the middle of the exhaust holes. There's an ellipsoid shape, a little bit recessed, so the exhaust will be straight and in the middle of the larger hole. I will do that while holding the hole vertically, bow down, back up, so I just can drop the exhaust straight in. I will do that off camera, and later for drying I will set it bow down, exhausts up on the side of my table, so I can just dry in upright position. The exhaust pieces are in, it should look like that. And now we can set it aside to let the glue cure. For the next step we will need again glue. We need this engine room wall, let's call it. We need this L-shaped wall, and as a side step we need this piece, which is an antenna and also hides the closing mechanism or security mechanism for a canopy. We need an M5 nut. We need the missile bodies and the missile tips. Let's get into it. For starters, we will at this wall, you just put some glue on the bottom side of it, and it's dried up again. There we go. You want to put some glue on this edge in a straight line up. Same on the other side. You don't need much as it's pressed into place. And we can also put some glue on the contact surfaces here. And you just push it in. It will slide right into place as far as it goes. Push it on the front, it will lean against those pieces. Push it down, it will just build a line with those pieces. For this L-shaped piece, you just add some glue on all the edges. Oh, it's way too much glue, but it doesn't matter. And we just put it in position. It's marked in the whole piece. Push it against there and there, so it makes contact and no water gets in, so the receiver is safe in case of some water ingress through the rudder couplings. For a side step, we glue the M5 nut in this piece, so we add just a bit of glue. Put it in like that, set it aside to harden. We need it at the end of our build again. We add a small dot of glue to the tip of the rocket body. And we add the rocket tip and we set it aside to harden. Do it once again, just a bit. And we set it aside. Oh, that was too much glue. Okay, we set it aside, let it harden until we need it in a later step. We're nearly done. For the next step, we need a bit more stuff. We need our pre-assembled hull until the last step. We need those two pieces, they're both the same. We need the two rudders, two M3 by 12 screws, or they can also be a bit longer, corresponding Allen key. The drive shafts we set aside earlier, the couplings, the corresponding Allen key. Some bearing grease, I use marine bearing grease. And something to spread the grease around, I just use a small screwdriver, it works well. So first we need to put our drive shafts in place. It's not necessary, but I like to put a spot of grease here. Usually this sealing ring should keep it watertight, but I just like a bit of extra lubrication and water tightness. Just do that for both pieces. Doesn't have to be much. And then we already put them in. One worked nice, the other one, oh come on. Nice front hole. So you should have one left spinning and one right spinning prop. Usually when you order two, they just deliver the two corresponding sides. But in my case I have two that spin the same direction because I couldn't get them delivered fast enough for this model to get online. So keep in mind to have two different spinning props. We'll flip the hull around. Oh, perfect, it slide out again. Push it back in. And just to keep it from sliding off, we put those couplings on again. We'll adjust them later. Nice, they won't fall out again. We can continue. So next we will put the rudders in. First we will spread some grease on this inner side of the rudder hole. We'll just put a larger drop here. There needs to be some grease also later. And I will just poke in with my screwdriver, twirl around the hole so it's on every side of the prop shaft, of the rudder shaft, sorry. Then I will spread it around here until this, let's call it a bowl, or this recession is filled with grease. Same amount on both sides. This compartment will get greasy. That's absolutely intended and no problem. Not beautiful, but it works. We will hide it later on. Now we take our Allen key and we'll push it from the downside through here. Do the same here, so we know we will later have it easier with the screws. We take the rudders and push them in from the bottom. So we pushed out lots of grease, that's fine. We just stir around, look that there's grease everywhere. Set it aside somewhere where we don't destroy stuff. Now we want to make sure with our fingers under the boat that the rudder is in the straight position, so it's easier for us to find. And we see we have a cross here, and there's also a cross on the top side of the rudder. They align with those holes, so when you make sure those holes are in a straight line with the chip, it will just fit. And for help, you can also hold the rudder like between your two fingers under the boat. And our greasy mess is hidden perfectly. Now we just need to screw it in. You can hold the plate in place with your two fingers leading the screw. You need a bit of pressure for starting because there is no thread in the rudder piece. It's just like 2.8 millimeters wide or so. And you can just screw straight in. Now that I've screwed in a few revelations, I will just hold the rudder from the bottom again with my two fingers. So I feel when I put some leverage on the Allen key and the screw is tight, it will turn the rudder with it, and I give it a half a rotation more. And we have a working rudder on one side. Repeat the same on the other side. The screw in, hold it from the top with a bit of pressure to get started. Then we go to the downside, hold the rudder with two fingers so we feel when the torque hits, when the screw is tight, so we don't over tighten it. You may have wondered why the rudders are printed standing upright. That's intended. It means the rudder shaft is not as stable, and if you hit, I don't know, maybe a string in the water or hit the ground hard with the rudders, they can easily snap off just at the bottom of the hull and won't damage anything inside further. They also won't rip anything out, so it should stay mostly watertight when you have a crash with your rudders. You can just print the rudder pieces again and switch them out by just screwing them out. That's also the reason why we just use a short screw and nothing like 30 millimeters long, for example. Otherwise the shaft would be too sturdy and you would just get stuck and destroy stuff. So that step's done. Bottom side of the ship looks still clean. Can turn the rudders. They should turn easily, but don't flop around. They should stay in a straight line. And that's it. For the next step, we only need one printed part, and that's the motor mounting plate. You can either print the one for type 450, 550 or 650 motors, like I did, because I use 550 motors. There's also a plate that looks like this. It's a kind of clean version, and you have to drill the holes that fit your motors if you order different ones. We need the two motors. We need 4 and 3 screws in my case that came with the motors to mount them. A fitting Allen key for those screws. We need the Allen key for those worm screws in the couplings. In my case, that's a 1.5 millimeter Allen key. And some pliers are helpful, but not 100% necessary. So we start by putting the motors on the plate. The direction is completely irrelevant. Just make sure you mount both motors on the same side. If you use a 550, 450, 650 motor or anything in the same size, it's an easy fit because you just have to use the plate I supply in the printing files. Come on, where is it? As you should have seen in the printing profile or in the description, this plate should be printed from heat-resistant material. I printed in ABS because PLA could just melt when the motors get warm. We don't want that. So now the motors are mounted. Should look something like that. Set it aside. Now we want to loosen those couplings. So first we make sure that the screw for the motor side is loose, so we can fit the shaft in easily later. And push it back a little. Same on this side. You can always grab the underside of the boat with the propeller to push it back in position. Come off. Right, so I loosen both screws, push it on again, back a little. Then we just have to drop in the plate with the motors. You may have noticed the difference between the last step and this one. I had to cut those triangles here, those braces, because I made a construction error. You don't have to do that in the release version. just have to slide it in, center it. Now we get our pliers to help. Grab the inside of the coupling and push it from under the boat. It's a bit finicky. Just do one side first and do the other later. I have to loosen this coupling too. Now I push from the underside with my thumb on the end of the drive shaft against it so it doesn't slide off again. That's annoying. Rotate it in position so I can... well. Rotate it again. Fuck this. I have to open the screw as well. Further. It's in a position that's fitting. Close those screws again, nice and tight. You might want to use some thread glue because they vibrate a lot. Do the same on the other side. Well, I loosened it a bit too much. That's when the pliers come in handy. As you may have noticed already, I don't cut out any mishaps or struggling scenes. Because you should see how it really feels to build this. And sometimes you just fail all over again. Doesn't matter, we keep it real. You want to make sure that you push with your finger on the underside of the boat against the drive shaft, because there is a seal on the outer side of the end of the drive shaft tubing, and it should be pressed a little against the hole so no water ingress can happen. And just like that, we did it, or I did it with a bit of struggle, but nevertheless, it's done. For the next step, we need the servo bracket, a rudder arm, a 9-gram servo, the mounting screw that came with the servo, just one of the two, a screwdriver that fits the screw, and some pliers are helpful again. So we just want to stick the wire through this hole and drop the servo in its place right here. Then we want to take pliers to put the screw in here. There is no pre-printed hole, you just push slightly so it will find its way in the material. Just make sure you don't over tighten it. As soon as it touches the servo, you stop, otherwise it will lift it. Then I forgot to mention, we need some glue also in this step. We put some glue on the sides of the servo bracket. The lower half is enough. And we drop it in here. Make sure the servo is pushed all the way to the bottom. I just have to loosen the screw again, like half a turn, so it doesn't push up. Can use the wire to keep the servo bracket in place. Just wipe off some excess glue and clean my screwdriver. Then we align the rudders. And we just push in the rudder arm. It just drops in place. Now the rudders are connected. As you can see, I just move one rudder, both of them move. They have some play, that's intended. They won't have play anymore when there's water pressure on them. So now we let the glue harden. And next up we will connect everything to the servo. Now we need the servo disc, the servo arm, the tiny screw that came with the servo to mount the servo arms, and again a screwdriver that fits that tiny screw. Now we have to align the servo so it's in its middle direction and not to the left or to the right steering. You can just press the disc on it, feel the one end point, the other end point. Take roughly the middle. Press the disc on as far as it can go. Stick in this arm. It should drop right in. whoops, we align the tiny screw with this tiny hole. Yeah, it's not easy, it's really freaking tiny. It really helps when you have a magnetic screwdriver, so you can fish it out of your boat for the 20 times you drop it. So now disc is screwed in the servo, and when I turn servo, the rudders turn. It's just a bit difficult to get a grip of the disc, but you see, it works. If you need to adjust the servo later on, you can just unscrew this screw, pull the disc off, stick it in your receiver later on, let that set it to 0, screw it back on. It's a matter of seconds. Now we just keep it like this, and the step is done. Focus. So for the next step we need some glue again, the threaded rod, 100 millimeters and 5, and the canopy again. So we just want to give a good drop of glue in this hole. Maybe put some on the lower centimeter or 2 of the threaded rod. Grab some excess glue while I can. Drop it in here. Turn it around, maybe move it up and down a little so the glue gets on each side of it. Then we take the canopy and put it on here like that. Make sure it sits right in place. It does, and we let the glue cure. I will clamp my soldering station on the red wire now, so it's just out of the way. It doesn't annoy me that much. Put some solder on so we have a bit of flux. Make sure the polarity of the plug matches the battery. Ooh, gets hot. I'll grab my pliers. Should have added some solder on the outer side of this pin. It's better than the inner side, so let's do this. And it's on. And the heat shrinks didn't shrink by themselves, that's wonderful. So I removed this clamp. I will add some solder on the contacts of the motors. Need some pressure solder on the wire. It's also not that easy to work with a phone in your face and also the cramped space. Or just use pliers. It's way easier. So I push back the wires as far as I like it, so it's neat and clean up here. Do the same on the other side. Now I will put some fresh solder on the wires first. If you didn't know it by now, I'm terrible at soldering beautiful pieces. But it doesn't matter as long as there is contact. So just mirror the polarity on this side compared to the other side. Now I will push the heat shrinks back over the soldering joints. If it's actually possible and I didn't make it too fat, as I did in this case. And it will work. You can use a hot air gun to shrink those heat shrinks, or you can just carefully go over it with your soldering iron. Go under it so the hot air rises around it. And it's shrunk on. Maybe a bit more. So now we have battery connection done. And the motor is installed. If you want to, you can clean up those wires with some zip ties so it looks nice and tidy. I may do that later on, just to make it look nicer. And I will also unplug this because I want to have this wire back here. If I can get the fan plug back on. So, because now I can make that a bit nicer. Maybe pull it back to the same length. Some zip ties. Yeah, looks fine to me. See you on the next step. Oh, it looks just a bit tail heavy, but that tells me the battery has to go completely to the front of the boat, and then that's just fine because we have a straight bow, so the higher it sits, the better. So when there's any waves, we don't sink in those waves, or we don't dive in. So I will just go back to my basement and I will add the battery to where it should be located. For this step, we need those brackets and some glue. And as I mentioned earlier, the battery needs to go to the frontmost position that's possible. So I will just add a drop of glue to the base of the bracket. Look at the battery straight. Put the bracket down. Maybe 0.5 millimeter or so away from the battery, so you can remove it easily. Add the bracket here. So that's the installation of the battery. Now, when this glue is cured, all the constructive measures are done. Next will be sealing the hull to make it completely watertight for a longer period of time, because those glue seams could get porous or get cracks over time because of all of the vibration of the motors. So in the next step, we will fill the borderlines between the pieces with some more sealant material, and I will paint the whole boat in a clear coat so the PLA doesn't get degraded by UV rays or by water.